IoT. And what we'd like you to do is on your table, you have these post-its, and they're labeled, should be numbered 1 through 10, to get your own top 10 list. Just kind of take them, put them on your board. List not only the functional use that you see for IoT, but also note on your post-it how you believe you would measure success of that deployment, whether it be savings, whether it be some social impact, whatever it might be. And after that half an hour, we're going to bring those back, and facilitators are going to take a review of this and say, okay, what are the commonalities and why might we rank a particular use of IoT higher than another? Now, during the course of today, we have 2 roving nerds in the audience. Can the roving nerds raise their hand? Chris Smith and Amber Ray Johnson. So the roving nerds are going to be helping facilitate dialogue. And so if you're using your BlackBerries and not paying attention, they might smack you up behind the head, right? But at the same time, I want them gathering information in terms of strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, and start to kind of jot these on the board. We're going to build that out throughout the session. The other thing that you're going to see throughout the day, we have some quotes that are rolling through the screen here. We're going to add to that. And we're going to add to that during the day in terms of did you know list. Okay, so did you know list might be, did you know that GSA is doing really cool stuff with IoT? A little pressure on Phil Focus. But we're going to start to build those things out, and then as we build out through the day, the last session is going to get us to the point where we're actually going to build a deliverable, from the MOC community, from the ACT-IAC community in terms of the white paper around deploying and managing IoT. So guys, a couple of quick, quick numbers in terms of the IoT community. Gartner forecasts that 5 billion connected things will be in use this year in 2015. And that's about 30% increase over 2014, and we'll reach 25 billion connected devices by 2020, becoming a powerful force for business transformation and its disruptive impact across all areas of the industry. Remember, the whole theme of MOC this year is around leveraging technology to disrupt culture within government, leveraging IT to disrupt culture. And we see this as a major disruptor for government and how we plan to manage it, which is why we're going to cover it in the detail that we are. According to Jim Tolley from Gartner, the digital shift investigated by the Nexus of Forces, and this is interesting, the Nexus of Forces noted as cloud, mobility, social information. So over the past decade, not even 5 years, we've had to deal with this disruption around social media, mobility, and cloud, and how is the impact of IoT going to drive that as well. We're talking about this being a $70 billion spend this year, 2015, with a growth of $263 billion by 2020. So serious money, guys, here being spent and having to be managed. With an estimated, let's talk about consumer, this is interesting too, it talks about consumer applications driving the connected things. I think what we're going to talk about from a consumer perspective is probably more from a constituency perspective, and how do we interface with our constituents potentially through these devices. So with that, I'm going to turn this over to Ned Williams. Ned, if you can take just a second to introduce yourself, and then introduce the speakers, and we'll dive into the Q&A before we break into the build-out sessions.
Thank you, Chris. I'm Ned Williams, U.S. Department of State, where I manage special communications, along with some foreign affairs networks, for information sharing with foreign countries and for secure communications with foreign countries. So as we look at new technologies and new ways of doing things, I thought this would be an excellent opportunity to see how we may leverage some of these evolving technologies to improve the way government serves its citizens and all of us. And this track 1 on the Internet of Things, as Chris said, is really about what business problems are we solving to support the mission. And, is the Internet of Things just a buzzword or a buzz phrase? Or is it simply a new phraseology for existing science that's being recategorized by analysts in the industry? So in this session, what we hope to do is to try to get real IoT. This session, I hope we can bring together all of our government experts along with industry experts and practitioners that have actually done things in IoT. And now you get a chance to hear some real examples of IoT in practice along with returns, gains, even those that are conceptualized to be gained from implementation of IoT. Like I said, it's a practitioner session. It's intended to help government and industry get a better understanding of the key mission areas and business requirements that may be better addressed or better implemented through Internet of Things technology. So with that, I'd like to take a brief second to allow our government experts to introduce themselves, starting with Phil Clopas from GSA Public Building Services, and Ola Reed from the National Institute of Standards and Technology, and Dan Hoffman from Montgomery County, Chief Information Officers, and Ms. Kelly Sullivan from the USPS to talk about some of the ways that they have introduced Internet of Things technology.
Hi, so I'm Phil Focus. I'm the Associate CIO for the Public Building Service within General Services Administration. So let me start by first show of hands. How many people know what PBS or Public Building Service is? All right, so good share. For those of you who don't know, we're the landlord for the federal government, primarily focused on civilian agencies. Our portfolio within PBS is rather large. We have nearly 360 million square feet of real estate, about 1,500 owned assets, and about 9,000 active leases. So it's a pretty big portfolio when it comes to the real estate community. We house over 1 million federal employees and associated contractors in our space. To put it in perspective, in terms of the revenue stream, it's nearly a 9 billion, B with a billion, B. Pretty big operation in terms of the amount of money that flows through our organization as we're leasing or acquiring leases, managing leases, and managing buildings, and obtaining buildings, constructing buildings for the United States taxpayers. So that's kind of what we do in a nutshell from PBS. And you want me to go into what we've done with the Internet of Things, or do we just
go ahead and make your introduction and come back?
Great, thank you.
Hi everyone. My name is ACT-IAC MOC, as was introduced. Currently I'm Associate Director of Cyber Physical Systems at National Institute of Standards and Technology, which is part of the Department of Commerce, if you haven't heard about that organization before. So a lot of things that we do are related to standards and measurement sciences, and IoT, and in some other government terms, CPS, Cyber Physical Systems, is very much of an interest to us because it's of the scale, because of the complexity, and because of the fragmentation of a lot of issues they're facing right now. So the White House White House started a program called Smart America Challenge a couple of years ago, which is focusing on IoT deployment and encouragement of the partnership between public and private entities. And NIST is carrying over in its second phase, and the program is now called Global City Teams Challenge. And that's a program that combines the smart cities with IoT. And I'm going to probably explain later why smart cities is important in IoT landscape. So in general, my work is facilitation and encouragement of the private sector in conjunction with the universities and government agencies to work together to maximize the impact of IoT.
I'm Dan Hoffman, the Chief Innovation Officer for Montgomery County, Maryland. I'm the non-Fed on the panel. But I was, prior to this position, a Fed. I was appointed to the Nuclear Regulatory Commission for this job. I work for the county executive of Montgomery County, and I run, in essence, what is the civic R&D lab. So I test out. I'm the office of pilots, prototypes, proof of concept projects, for things that I can test out in a relatively lean, iterative manner. I look for things that have the potential to scale up, so nothing really stays with me forever. It should then go to the fire department or the health and human services department or the libraries department to scale up. But most importantly, I look for things that are also experimental in nature. So what we try to foster within the innovation program in Montgomery County is that safe place to experiment, that safe place to fail concept. And a lot of IoT applications are very much in that realm. I run an IoT lab that we call the Institute. We've been involved with Smart America Challenge for quite a while now. We're now involved in the Global Cities Team Challenge through our SCALE project, which is an IoT test bed at a senior living facility. And that's how we test things out. We try to find real-world applications, create those test beds beds where startups, federal government, large companies, academia can take either a new device or a commercial device or a customized device and deploy it into a real-world setting. So we work with large companies like IBM, Intel, small startups, universities like MIT and UC Irvine to bring those IoT devices into those real-world settings. We'll do more test beds in the future. We'll announce an agriculture test bed, hopefully later this summer, and a corrections test bed, hopefully by the end of the year.
Morning. My name is Kelly Sullivan. I'm from the United States Postal Service. Anyone in the room ever heard of that little agency? My team in particular is responsible for R&D in the secure electronic delivery space. So certainly things like the Internet of Things is something that we work on. Our intent in my group is we prove out the ideas, and then like Daniel, we look for opportunities in the rest of the organization to grow them. So the United States Postal Service is responsible for not only the delivery of all the mail to you, but a significant amount of data, about 43 petabytes of data that we share with our business partners and transverses across our network. So we're very excited to be part of the conversation today and share with you some of the things that a lot of you as consumers of the Postal Service products don't see. A little peek behind the curtain there.
Well, thank you. As you can see, we've got a really nice cross-cutting section of both local and federal government. And what I'll do now is I'll ask a couple of questions just to sort of introduce the topic and get into a more practical environment of things that are actually happening now. So Dan, maybe if I could start with you, because you started to give us an overview there of some of the major efforts in Montgomery County. Could you delve a little bit more into some of those major efforts and talk about what's coming to fruition?
Sure. I mean, there's, I would call it kind of the first layer of IoT applications, which we're really all, I think, probably familiar with or I think already encountered. They're the types of things that when people say, well, the term IoT has just been repurposed. We've always known it as, M2M, or we've always known it as, a cyber physical system of some sort. Those are the parking sensors. Those are things that help with trash pickup. They're the types of applications, even I would say a lot of the smart building stuff. They're the types of applications for which there's a real clear business case for it. There's a really clear ROI, a really clearly measurable ROI too. So at the local government level, it was easy to get funding for it. It was easy to get funding to put into a parking garage. And so it was easy to get funding to put those sensors in the street. Those types of things we're already seeing because they actually take the action themselves and create the savings. So if it's a building that has sensors that turn off lights when they're not being used or shut off water, those types of things you can easily measure. They take action themselves. They don't need human intervention. Easy stuff. The stuff that we're starting to see now is the stuff that is not just M2M, but M to M to P, machine to machine to person or people, and that's where it requires some type of follow-on action or analysis, and those are starting to become, I think, a little more real because of the cloud and the capabilities that we're starting to see, because of the ability to process at the fringe a bit more easily, and those types of things, whether they are using large amounts of weather data to make predictions and make decisions, whether they're using sensors out in the community to help predict and deploy police officers, whether they're technologies that allow a correctional facility to run more efficiently or improve our outcomes in terms of recidivism. Those are things that I see coming and becoming a little more realistic because of not just the computational factors, but because the staff are starting to understand a little bit more. People are starting to attend things like this. We're starting to also hire in new generations of staff that understand the analytics behind all of that and they're the ones that ultimately we're starting to understand there's human factors behind it and make decisions based off the data we're receiving.
Well, thank you, Dan. Those are really compelling cases. We'll hold back up also shortly. But so cool. You talked about a number of things going on in this there in the open statement. Can you touch on some of the primary focus?
Sure. So NIST does a lot of things related to IoT, starting from, for example, resiliency, security issues, privacy issues, of course, but get done more of an innovative works like robots and UAVs and sensors and building automation, anything that you can even imagine what IoT could actually do for us. One of the important things that we are figuring out is that IoT concept is not exactly a industry per se, it's an enabler. So when you say it's an enabler, it has to help produce some result eventually. And it has to come up with some more tangible benefits that people can understand. And IoT basically means connecting devices and having data and extracting information. But at the end of the day, it has to touch us, the people. And that's where we think infrastructure is very important. Actually, if you look at IoT, there are really two pieces there. One is the consumer side of the industry. The other one is more of an infrastructure and more of a fundamental industry-to-industry relationship, including government. So when you look at this infrastructure, I mean, a lot of times when you want to deploy anything, you need assistance or support from the cities. When I say cities, I'm not just saying that cities per se cities. It can be counties, it can be any kind of communities. But that's why you kind of think of the whole thing, IoT from an infrastructure perspective, city is an extremely important piece. Montgomery County is actually a great example of how cities can actually catalyze the deployments and the proliferation of these type of new technologies. So what this does in this case is we are really encouraging and facilitating the cities, the industry, and universities to work together, really maximize impact and create real tangible benefits. Connecting devices is one thing, but it's going to really save lives. It's going to really create more jobs. It's going to create more business cases. It's going to improve the economy. That's the type of the answer we are trying to get through this process.
Thank you. I think somehow we're beginning to see some of the dots connected. We talk about providing citizen services that actually make a difference by using the new technology. Phil, you touched on a lot of things as well. Can you talk about your internal IoT efforts?
Sure. And since we are in a real estate business, our big thing, if you will, is the building. And what we're trying to do and what we're doing, actually, not trying to do, it is real. The whole concept is having our buildings tell us how we're doing versus our people telling us how we're doing. And I'll give you 3 examples of what we're doing as it relates to the Internet of Things in our facilities management organization. First, and it is not very sexy, we've been doing it for quite a while, is our smart metering program. We meter approximately 500 of our own assets. We're metering information associated with energy, gas, water consumption, solar power, and we're using that information to benchmark and to track and to hit certain mandates that OMB is providing us on in terms of energy saving. So our smart metering program is something that is very real. It's been around quite a while. And it's good, but it's not, we need to take it to the next level. And the next evolution of this is what we call our GSA Link, or our Smart Buildings program. And this is where we're actually deployed and leveraging building automation information in about 81 of our buildings right now that's up and live and in production. And we're capturing data associated with how our buildings are operating, whether it's lighting, whether it's the elevators, whether it's the energy, whether it's the chillers, the boilers, the heaters in those buildings. So we're capturing that information as part 1 of this program. Part 2 of this program It's massive amounts of information. We're collecting approximately 29 million data points a day associated with our buildings. And we're normalizing that data because, unfortunately or fortunately, this market, in my opinion, is very immature, and within these 81 buildings, we have 5 or 6 different manufacturers that we know about. There's many more that I don't even know about. There's at least a dozen different versions of these manufacturers' software that run these buildings, and we're spread across 11 regions. So we have to normalize that data because we're getting it in different formats on different protocols. And then we're running it through an analytics engine. We're running these 29 million data points through an analytic engine. And we're monitoring thresholds and looking for anomalies in the way those assets are running in our buildings. And when it exceeds or comes lower than what the defined threshold should be, we get an alert or a spark. Very similar to what we've been doing in the network areas and monitoring servers, but we're taking this down a level and looking at a lot of big data points associated with the operations of our buildings. Once we get those alerts, we're able to react to that particular alert. So let me give you some real examples here. Chiller cycles, hot and cold, hot and cold. You really don't know as long as the thermostat, or as long as the temperature in the building is maintaining, a static temperature. But through our sensor activity, we were able to see that it's going hot and cold. When it goes hot and cold, there's 2 things that happen. A lot of energy gets used, right? Because it's cooling the building and then it's heating the building. So that's not a good thing, right? So that triggered an alert which took our action. Equally as important, just think of that's a mechanical device. This is not a server, a $10,000, $15,000 server. This is a big chiller in a building. Think of what that's doing, that's cycling back and forth. And that can go on for 30 days, 60 days, 90 days if we didn't have this program in place. So prolonging the life cycle of that asset, and 1 or 2, okay. When you're looking at it across 80 buildings and there's 10, 15, 20 of these things perhaps in a building, that's really significant. So that's really exciting. We're able to detect these alerts within our building and take appropriate action. One of the other important things that we're doing, we also are doing a lot of piloting, if you will. And this is a program that I'm really excited about. We'll talk a little more, I think, maybe at the roundtables. But it's well-built buildings, right? Well-built buildings for well-being. And what we're trying to do is to correlate, if you will, how open office space correlates to actually the health of the individual and the stress of that individual. Medical sensors, and again, we don't have this deployed in 81 buildings. I don't want, this getting back to Norman saying, Phil, what are you telling you? We're piloting this. It's a very controlled pilot. We have a group of people who actually wear health sensors. And this is a little far out there, but maybe not that far when you think of it. But we're collecting health information, and these are all volunteers. They signed all the paperwork. We don't have any union implications. Very self-contained pilot. But it is really cool because we're trying to correlate the environmental conditions in our buildings and our open office space to how healthy that individual is. The premise, the healthier the person, the more satisfied they are in their work environment, the more engaged they are, and the more productive that individual could be. Again, a little far out there, but it's just some of the things to whet the appetite, I think, on the future of where we want to go with this Internet of Things.
Well, thank you, Bill. Sounds like you guys are interested in tracking a lot of information, but I'd like to turn to Kelly because, of course, Postal Service has been involved in tracking things forever. It seems like we've even talked about the Internet of those things. So, Kelly, can you share how some of the things that you're doing at USPS to implement or leverage IoT technology?
Sure, absolutely. So as the Postal Service continues that journey from a manual organization into a more evolved from manual to mechanized to automated and now really decentralized. Right? So that that automation is not only in the big facilities, our processing facilities, but it's down in the hands of our carriers. So I don't know if you've noticed recently, if you have a carrier that's coming around that actually has a mobile delivery device. So this year there will be over 200,000 of those devices deployed across the nation. You'll also see in our retail facilities, probably about 3,000 of what we call our premier facilities, the mobile point of sales. So if you're you walk into the Postal Service and there's a significant line, you'll actually find someone coming from behind the counter out to the front with their mobile point of sales, just like they do at the hardware store and the Place House now, right? Trying to break that line and come across it to better serve you. But what's interesting is beyond the mobile delivery devices come a series of unique products that we can do once we have that. So Phil's perspective on how you keep your employee safe is quite interesting for us because our employee base is very manual and we're spread across lots of geographies, and in some scenarios the letter carrier is the only one out there. So we were actually looking at things with those sensors that would allow us to know if, say, a carrier is carrying mail in Death Valley and, you know, from a GPS perspective, you don't see them moving for certain amounts of time, right? You can begin to reach out to that carrier. We'll be actually able to send text notifications out to them to ask them, hey, if you've noticed you haven't moved, can you just confirm that things are fine, right? It's an interesting situation. We did imply that the union perspective. You know, we are heavily unionized, the Postal Service, and so there is a component of it that, you know, it's not Big Brother trying to watch over the employee, but it does drive certain efficiencies from a reporting perspective in terms of how long does a route take, how long should it take someone to take 2,000 packages around on a 100-mile route, how long should it take someone to walk that versus drive that, right? So now as we have sensors on the carriers, sensors on the vehicles, in a lot of scenarios, sensors on actual packages, depending on what level of product it is going through our infrastructure, we begin to have all this data that allows us to do things we've never done before. So like a lot of my colleagues up here, we are doing things with big data to do a mining of that information to find those next trends as we continue to lean out everything that the Postal Service is doing. I mean, we're one of those organizations that's literally chasing that, that last tenths of a percentage to try to get everything out there on time. Something you may have noticed around the holiday season, I don't know if any of you saw the carriers on the street on Sundays. Did folks remember seeing that? So we've been doing a series of experiments with 7-day package delivery. And in order to do that, what that means is it's not a regular route. So all of our routes are actually being generated dynamically for those Sunday deliveries. So in advance, we're doing predictive analysis of the information that we know we have coming in from our shippers. We have that data coming in. We're doing analysis to determine it's 2,000 packages coming to the Northeast. It's coming into this processing facility, bless you. And therefore, they're going to need 5 carriers at this location at this point in time to make sure that we have the folks available to get the packages out to those customers who are expecting them. And it makes it kind of interesting. So Phil might have his route one day, and he's going to a very different set of streets than he would have normally gone to on that same route 2 weeks prior. And it's all being generated dynamically on the fly for him and sent down through his delivery device that can actually give him directions, point-by-point driving directions on where to go. Because again, that may not be his route normally, and he may not actually know those streets. And frankly, that's not really relevant any longer in that new world. Whereas previously, that was one of the key things, right? To being able to be most efficient on your route was to understand which streets are one way, which one connects to where. Now with the Internet of Things, we can sort of remove that from the equation. So I think you'll see more and more initiatives, smart mailboxes. We've been talking about a few pilots even just sitting here today.
Thank you, Kelly. I know that Postal Service has one of the most complex logistics operations in the world, and I'm interested to find out more about how you integrate all of this new information into that logistics operation to improve the overall situation for citizens in their delivery of services. But we're going to run short on time, so I'm going to have to postpone additional questions so that we can, yes, we can go around this very briefly and take one or two. Yes, I'd like to take a couple of questions from the audience. I have some here, but I'd be interested to hear your questions before we decide our breakout sessions. Yes, please.
So Phil, for PBS.
He'll bring a mic.
Oh, JD's going to stand next to me yelling a little loud. So Phil, Chris Smith, AT&T. So GSA has 205,000, 250,000 automobile fleet that they lease on behalf of other agencies. Any thought to how that's tied together to building location to ensure smarter sharing of those cars, better life cycle management, that type of thing?
Yeah, actually there's two aspects that are actually going on right now. Tracking where those cars are and how they're operating is one aspect, but a lot of our fleet actually is electric cars now. So we're trying to figure out how we could put filling stations, electrical filling stations within our buildings you know, for these federal cars to go and to get the juice, if you will, the power. And monitoring and measuring that as well. So I think that is an aspect that is also a futuristic type thing that we want to expand a little more. It's more around the partnership of our FAST organization with the fleet and the PBS with our federal buildings and our parking garages and putting together these filling stations to power the cars.
Molly Walker, Pierce Cup.
Dan, you mentioned that there is a pilot underway involving an assisted living facility. I was wondering if you could expand on that a little bit and maybe if anyone else wants to speak to the role of Internet of Things in serving these more vulnerable populations that are using technologies.
Yeah. So the first test bed that we started up was a small affordable housing complex about a year ago. We've now expanded it into a large independent senior living facility. So not assisted living, but independent. We didn't want to quite jump right into folks with severe medical needs or that were encountering end-of-life scenarios. We wanted to still keep it on the independent living side so we can find folks, especially that might benefit from IoT if they were trying to age in place. So we have about an 80-unit senior living facility, and we have volunteers. There are some sensors being placed in common areas that are meant to analyze the atmospherics of the building, but we also have resident volunteers. We've got about a dozen residents in that facility, and still adding more, who are coming to us and saying, here's the problem that I'm encountering. Do you have a device that could alleviate that or improve quality of life? And in some cases, it's easy. They're prone to falling, so we have fall sensors that we're working on. In some cases, there are folks with respiratory issues, so they're very sensitive to humidity, with dust, mold, sort of pollens. We're working on air quality factors. And those are the three, in this particular test, but those are the three areas we're focusing on: air, water, and health. We're looking at some of the, for example, when I was giving a presentation just last week to a group of the residents, I threw out the idea of folks that might be starting to experience the early signs of Alzheimer's or dementia. They still want to live independently, they still want to stay in their apartment, but they're quietly concerned about walking off, or they've noticed they're forgetting things, or they've got a child or a caretaker that is worried about that as well. So we've got some sensors that we're working on that will indicate, send alerts when a person kind of walks out of a perimeter. And those are the types of things that no one in that group raised their hand to say, yeah, I'm concerned about this, because you don't want, it's something you don't want, and it's not easy to talk about. But one of them came up to me afterwards and was like, the thing about walking off, could I get one of those? And you can tell she said it real quietly. It's a sensitive subject, so we do it all volunteer basis. And what we want to understand, I think, in this is that the human factor in it. So University of Maryland's one of our partners as well. They've got a group it's a healthcare IT group, and their role in the project is actually there's no real technology role for them. It's more understanding those human factors. So interviewing the residents after they've gotten advice to say, what was your experience with it? Did you feel uncomfortable wearing it? There's something that we might have installed in their home. Was it a distraction? Did it make you feel nervous or concerned? Did you use it? Those are the types of things we're also trying to understand from them, because a lot of these things are very, very new, very first of a kind. And some of the residents, when I give those presentations, they see that big brother concept. They're worried about people's spine. We saw this with smart meter rollouts when the electric companies started rolling those out to single-family homes. There was a lot of pushback, and that was something that we learned from, because people were making judgments on the technology based on fear, not based on reality. They thought the smart meters were going to give them brain tumors, or they thought they were going to give them set their house on fire. People were going to rob them because they knew because someone would monitor the electrical usage and then break in. And a lot of things that just weren't really based in any kind of reality. So education and awareness is another big part of this. Starting to understand what kind of questions people are going to ask. What are they good at? Why are they resistant maybe to adopting some of these things?
Thank you. We're going to have to try and keep a sort of tight schedule so that we can use this breakout session to sort of come up with our top 10 Internet of Things applications or uses at each table. And I will ask each of the panelists to spend at least maybe 5 minutes at each of the tables so that we can ask more specific questions to narrow in on some of your thoughts and ideas. So with that, I think we will go ahead and start coming up with the top 10 list of Internet things at the table.
Yeah, so for each of the government facilitators, there's a spot at each table where you guys can sit and start to talk through your top 10 lists. You can, with the Post-its, like I said, jot them down, list them out on your whiteboard, and then about 5 to 10 slides of the session, we're going to gather them back up and pick up a little more Q&A. So maybe just, you guys figure out exactly we'll get into it. Anne Marie and Chris,
again, you come back with just-in-time replacement, so you don't have any downtime at all. So those are two of the aspects that we talked about, potentials that are related to the postal service, but also, most importantly, related to safety and health for the city.
Well, thank you. Those are interesting ideas. I hadn't quite thought of some of those. I think I've started to see some of the results of the hackathon. Any questions from the panelists about those ideas?
I just want to comment on it. I think they were really creative ideas as they sort of extended when you have all this data, and then how do you take the operational need for the data and turn them into products. And I think they have a lot of interesting thoughts. And at the end there, you're starting to say, well, we have this problem. What other sectors have it as well, right? And where else is there opportunities?
Great. One of the concepts, or one of the ideas that we were throwing around was the two ends of the spectrum with the Internet of Things. One, convenience, one, privacy. And there's trade-off, right? The more you want to strive for convenience, more than likely you're going to have to give up something. And that's something that you're going to have to give up is something about yourself. You're going to have to allow, for that convenience. And then you overlay the choice. And with your letter, what if the carrier doesn't want to be tracked? He doesn't want a big brother like Dan said, looking and seeing where he is and how fast he's working, and how do we handle that choice aspect of that, or that privacy? It's an interesting trade-off, and it's more a comment than a question.
Yeah, we had that as well.
That's a good segue.
Yes, it is.
Okay, perfect.
Why don't we have that table 2?
Okay.
Thank you. So, we had a number of interesting ideas that I think dovetailed with Table 1's ideas. I think it started with how can we leverage the existing network of sensors that are already out in our network today and take advantage of them and better access to that information. And of course, the privacy issue came into place, which is we need people to opt in provide that information in order for us to make use of it. So one of the first ideas that we had was similar to the table ones in the sense that we can take all this private health data that's being collected on telephones and other things today, we can start to push that out to, say, a federal government agency like HHS. And if these folks are opting in, then HHS can say, you know what, I see a threat pattern there. I have an elderly person that's at home by themselves. I'm sensing that their heart rate is a little elevated. Is there a problem there? And maybe something as simple as sending a text message or some other alert to that phone to get that person to say something is wrong, as opposed to maybe the traditional way of pressing the light alert button to say something is wrong. They may not know. And so we can start to take advantage of the community information, those patterns. That can be very helpful. Of course, that again brings up that privacy issue. And if I have an aging mother that I want this service to happen with, I'm going to ask her, doesn't this make sense for you to opt in to this service? And so I think, as from a government perspective, we've got to, have a mechanism to be able to get people to understand what those trade-offs are and the benefit to them doing that. One of the other areas that again, with the theme of taking advantage of existing sensors that are out there is in energy. So, a lot of homes, and we've heard about Elon Musk's Powerwall and so forth, and pushing information back out into the grid. How do we get that actually working? I mean, there's a lot of sensors out there that are not connected to central systems. How do we get that actually working so that we are bringing efficiencies, cost efficiencies, and other benefits to the end user? So those were I think the top two. Any others that? Law enforcement was another one. And one thing on the law enforcement thread, there's a lot of sensors that are out there, for example, in Metro, that aren't connected to these central systems. So we're collecting the data, we're just not using it. So that's an opportunity.
Well, thank you very much, Evan. Hopefully we'll get a chance to touch on some of those and some of the later tracks. But let's move on to table 3 and see if we get that top 2.
So I never could follow rules really well, so I'm going to cheat. We already heard about health from up front. We had that as well. We think that's really important. I'm going to put cyber in a special category because we have an argument that it is a cross-cutting and potentially underpins almost any of these applications as well the opportunity for providing it and also vulnerability to undermine these capabilities. The one I'd like to tee up is a cluster of 3. And it's really around public safety, the conversation that we just heard about law enforcement, the shot spotters, the license plate readers, the UAVs are all a set of sensors for public safety. But there's a set of sensors for public safety also related to hazmat, RADNU, CAD, bio. There's a set of sensors related to critical infrastructure, operations. All of those can be clustered in sort of the safety, public safety protection arena. And a really important concept that came out here was teeing off your comment. It's not sufficient to just have those things run and aggregate massive amounts of data. They become valuable when they start leading to better, faster decisions and actions. So can you automate the shutdown of a generator before it goes bad because it's under attack, maybe from a cyber attack? So I think there's a whole cluster here around public safety and hazard reduction. And we suggested making that important because while things like smart buildings, fleet, etc. are very good for efficiency, that was about life and safety. That was about life safety property too.
Well, thank you, Mike. Those are very good points.
Yeah, and we had a great discussion about the standards that we suggested injecting into the SWOT.
I think we'll get to that.
And really, just to jump in real quick, so you touched on something I mentioned earlier where it's not just aggregating data, it's actually making a decision off of that next step. There's something now, yes, it senses something, it automatically triggers something. Actually taking action on it, you won't see value if you don't take any action on it. It's like a Fitbit. For those of you who have a Fitbit, tracking your steps is nice. It doesn't make you healthier though unless you actually take more steps. So, or go to the gym. Otherwise, it's just a fancy device that does nothing for you that you pay money for. So you've got to actually do something and have the fortitude to take action on that data. And that threshold is where local jurisdictions need federal research institutions and other research institutions to give us some comfort, because when we deploy, the decision to deploy a police officer or a firefighter, more importantly, the decision to not deploy a firefighter or a police officer has to be based on something that we can back ourselves up on, because no police chief or mayor wants to get up and say, well, you know what, the sensor wasn't registering high enough, so we didn't send the police officer, people died. Well, we got to be able to back up why we make these decisions. If we've got a certain amount of data, a certain number of factors, why, and we can't, Montgomery County or, rural towns in South Carolina, they can't come up with those protocols and standards on their own. They have to have input from, a much larger, people with a lot more brain power than we do. Like
talking to I think some of our highlights build on some of the other ones, but we had are all about transit and transport from a management perspective, the drones, as well as from an intelligence standpoint of understanding where vehicles are. Other ones were around energy management. We also talked about smart gear and wearables, so understanding how a person is reacting in a certain situation, being able to use the technology to build off of that. And then finally around food safety with supply chain management as well as smart farms and the resource management from that perspective.
Well, thank you. Those are also interesting ideas. We'll get a chance to touch on some of them a little bit later. Any comment?
Yes, just a couple of comments. Is anybody from DOT here? Transportation? Okay. So I want to kind of make a DOT as an example because first, they're doing a great job in connected vehicle initiative. Secondly, their connected vehicle program illustrates one of the challenging issues that they are solving right now, but can be applicable to other sectors too. So think about it. The point of the connected vehicle is every car, they want to connect each other so that when you hit a brake, your brake, you don't need to, the cars behind you, not just right behind you, but cars multiple times behind you can see it and stop it before they have to pile up of 550 cars. So this is a great startup. However, for the time being, for probably the next decades, you will see a mixture of connected vehicle-enabled cars and non-enabled cars. So you have to come with a mechanism can deal with this heterogeneity. Same thing with the USPS. What if some carriers do not want to wear their sensors? So are we going to just completely take them out of the grid? Or are we going to have some kind of compensated? So we have to always think about the legacy system that should be mixed with the new IoT-enabled systems. And that's one kind of comment I want to make. And secondly is we're talking a lot about the public goods, public benefits. And at the end of the day, a lot of things that we do can be obviously from a corporation's perspective, they are looking for more revenue sources and things like that. From government perspective, you have to also look at how it's going to really help people, how it's going to really save lives, as I said, or improve the economy. I think that's, from that perspective, a lot of things about the public safety we have to put a lot of attention to.
So thank you.
Can I just make one comment on it? Only because the food one, I think it's near and dear to my heart with having threatening food allergies. That one, I think, especially in the cases of the recalls where there's an undeclared item in food, I think a great product opportunity is to match that up with consumers that have their receipts stored online and send out notifications so that you bought these products. No longer do you have to search through your cabinets and try to read all the SKUs to determine if you've got it. You could be alerted that you have that particular product in your household. Okay? So I think that's great.
So let's go to the final table.
Thanks. A lot of ours were covered, but a couple that we think we had that were slightly different. One of them was we called the cross-agency kind of functional collaboration. It's kind of key where we talk about the buildings and the power of being able to put not just sensors. I think one of the main things we talked about was actionable things that are actually happening. But to be able to say, these these people are these facilities. Wait a second, there's a GSA building right next door. Why are they over there? How can we get services to different government groups that don't even know that those big functions are there? Okay, I'm physically here, I need power. I need a place to work. Oh, wait a second, it's right over there. So that was one of the others. The other, I guess the two others, one of them we talked about medical devices. I have this experience about this, I'm not talking about monitoring, I'm talking about physically giving people medicine, physically giving, actually being able to do those things remotely, those type of capabilities. And then the last one was on citizen services. So we had a really good example of somebody calls up the Social Security Administration. We already know that person has had their check hasn't been deposited or they're physically not where they're supposed to be. So when they call in, the person on the service center has a whole lot more data of where that person is, what they've done, what their health is, and being able to react to citizens in a whole lot more efficient way than we currently do today.
And not just across agency, but also across jurisdiction. So, for example, if we arrest someone who had, it might take us a significant period of time to find out, or we might never find out that they were incarcerated in another jurisdiction and also had a certain set of rehabilitations or treatments, or it might be other type of social services that we're delivering to a family in one place, and they might move, we lose track of them, they show up in another place. They get the same set of services. There's so many different cross-jurisdiction things that which there's very little communication, just with driver's license. Why do we still have driver's licenses that are different from state to state and different? There are so many different little things that city to city, county to county, state to state are just different, and it's pointless as to why they're different. It's just because somebody wanted to be different than another person.
One of the first points on the collaboration was more around common services that multiple agencies and jurisdictions provide, and maybe putting them in a community or a building to leverage that collaboration, instead of saying, hey, we're going to have GSA in this building, maybe we're going to have all the case managers. This is, I know, a little far-fetched, but this is a case management floor. You want to come collaborate about case management, maybe you come to this forum as an example. Not only at GSA, but, other areas.
Well, fantastic. I think we're about out of time. I want to give everybody time for a break before we go to session 2.
Yeah, so just so you know what kind of the next session is going to transition into. This session was, thank you so much for the